Welcome to another episode of the Crypto Spin-Through Podcast. So, majority of this episode is going to be all about Venezuela and just ICOs and a little bit about banks. So it's almost a themed episode of news, just because a lot relating in that sphere has happened in the past week. So, first up is Venezuela's cryptocurrency is here, but it isn't clear of who's involved with it. So the Petro is claiming to have been a big success. It's been at minimum 650 million, and that's pretty good. Really, the problem here is the affiliations with the Petro is very unclear. And even the white paper itself is kind of shaky. Seems like they just kind of went for the easy ICO money more than looking for a crypto project for the country. Kind of like just a way to avoid sanctions and squeeze money out of foreign investors more than anything. And to tie that in with the next headline, Venezuela decides one coin's not enough and Readies new Petro gold token. And this is why I kind of think they were just kind of cash grabbing to circumvent sanctions, because already Petro gold, when people aren't even sure if the Petro is really going to be backed by oil as they claim. So it really puts in questionable practices by Venezuela, which shouldn't be too surprising, but we'll have to see how this pans out and how they really honor this asset-backed coin. And finally, the last thing to focus on Venezuela is that Venezuela's president orders companies to accept Petro. And so Maduro issued a statement to several state-run companies that they have to convert a percent of their sales and purchases in the Petro. So at least this is going to be an attempt to keep the Petro going, and we'll just have to see how long that lasts, because like I said, my regards to the Petro right now is that the Petro really seems to be just a cash grab to avoid sanctions, and not really Venezuela trying to use crypto in a actual useful way. There's too much that can go wrong, and maintaining the Petro or just making sure it's being used how it claims to be used. Just like I've been saying, first of all, we don't know if these are really going to be backed by the commodities they claim. Two is, how are Western powers going to react that are sanctioning Venezuela currently? Because they will 100% not allow they will not allow Venezuela to persist unabated if this is really something that totally circumvents sanctions. Right now, the Petro in general is just a very in a very weird situation until we have time to kind of elapse and able to see how other countries react. And speaking of how other countries are reacting, the next Petro, Iranian ministers reveal cryptocurrency plans. So this kind of misleading headline, it was really just a meeting of bankers considering blockchain as a potential way to innovate Iranian banks. But there definitely could be a similar development in Iran, considering Iran is also facing sanctions, particularly by the US. So this could be the start of countries that are kind of internationally sanctioned to use crypto to circumvent that and still have an influx of foreign cash flow and development. I anticipate once, not if, but once Western powers start cracking down on crypto that's used for this reason, that you'll see these ICOs be conducted in more privacy coin based denominations. Instead of accepting Ethereum, they'll probably be accepting Monero and maybe even Zcash. PayPal CFO, Bitcoin success is very likely. CFO John Rainey sees the potential Bitcoin has, but thinks it's too early for mass adoption. The outlook for the tech is positive, but the volatility keeps it from being a true currency. Not too long ago, PayPal's executive shared another positive outlook about Bitcoin. So this could be signaling that PayPal is changing its tune toward crypto and just may accept crypto on their platform. This could be because they're seeing a lot of PayPal-like crypto solutions pop up, especially with Coinbase itself developing a merchant solution now. And PayPal realizes its error in really disregarding crypto as a payment option. Legal risks to ICOs that no one is talking about. So, you ever wonder why most ICOs avoid the US? Well, there's multiple reasons, but one that was highlighted in this article and I just learned from this article is the Securities and Exchange Act of 1933 says that a person who buys an unregistered security can sue the seller on to get his own money back. Basically, this means that this is no longer in the domain of the SEC, but a judge, the court, to decide if this ICO was a security or not. Additionally, the sellers have personal liability in getting back all the money that they're owed from the lawsuit, so hiding behind a company doesn't do much. The only positive thing for ICO throwers is the statute of limitation is quite small. If this isn't done within a year of the sale, it can't be done at all. So this kind of signals that you have to expect that legit projects have a very high chance of flourishing in the US if they go through all the layers of bureaucracy they have to go through now. And companies that think they don't have to bother with any of the security filings will find themselves in a very bad legal situation, either by the SEC or individuals who sue them once things don't go the way the investor wants it to. And another thing of note to mention, is how a recent ICO, which is the Indoor ICO, kind of blew up because token metrics weren't to the liking of many people, and because of this, their reaction was interesting. It's quite known that pools of people in crypto all invest together. So a pool is basically a bunch of individuals putting money into one address and then sending it off to an ICO. Because these token metrics were absolutely insane, mainly because incredibly high supply and 20% went to the advisors, but only 20% was in the crowd sale. It was some insane token metrics for crypto standards, but that's beside the point. These pools are kind of an example of having that liability issue for ICOs. I'm not sure where it would stand regarding where Indoor is in the whole process of being legitimate or not. But if they were considering themselves more of a private sale oriented kind of company and were avoiding being in a security by going, they kind of were being funded by VC route and it's a private sale rather than anything else. Maybe they could avoid and be an exception to this little securities rule, but I'm sure their extreme reaction was kind of the fact that these pools of people could kind of invalidate that and turn it into just the standard security. And all that's really being revealed now is security laws are very complex, and you really need someone who knows their stuff, or your ICO could be in danger. So keep that in mind when investing in certain ICOs that do accept people from the US and Europe. The US especially, though. Next up, Bitcoin Lightning fraud. One of the co-founders are building a Watchtower to fight fraud. So the Lightning Network is taking no chances of being the number one solution to Bitcoin scaling. The concept of Watchtowers has been developed, and this is basically third-party entities kind of register themselves as detectors of any kind of fraudulent activity in the network. So if one party tries to defraud another, these entities are the one that alerts the party that this could be a suspicious kind of transaction going down, and they could act in accord. So it's a pretty premature solution, considering Lightning isn't really out on the mass scale yet, but it's a good solution to be thinking about for the future of the Lightning Network, and it's something good to have, because individuals keeping track of that themselves would be extremely difficult. German regulators pledge precise oversight for ICOs. So, as I was talking about earlier, securities law is very difficult, and basically the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority of Germany said get in contact with them before launching an ICO, because you could be in violation if you don't do it in a certain manner. 2018 is going to definitely be the year of ICOs getting legit. So be careful with those who are still operating on buzzwords and hype, because 2017 is over and that will not pass for anything anymore. Oil data firm Platts rolls out commercial blockchain platform. So blockchain is now being utilized to streamline data collection for oil firms, and this will help a lot with managing inventory and other supply chain related needs. A good confirmed use case for the technology. Here's a big headline. Coinbase gives IRS more than 10K users information. So if you remember a few months ago, I mentioned how Coinbase kind of won in a way. The IRS wanted a lot of user data, but Coinbase ended up only giving like 10K users data for the 2013-2015 range, and it was mainly people who are making a lot of money. Now they've officially sent off the 10K people, around 10K people who the IRS has requested. And if you hang around Twitter, you'll see that a lot of the crypto OGs have been reporting that they received the email from Coinbase saying they are one of the ones who will have all their information sent off to the IRS for investigation. So if this is one thing that proves that you should definitely do your taxes, because these exchanges are the first thing that will be targeted to get people who are avoiding taxes if you're redeeming it in straight fiat to your bank. Because if not, they can also go through the bank. But mainly they're going to be targeting exchanges to make sure they get everybody they can. Next up, Bank of America admits that Bitcoin is a threat to the SEC in an SEC report. So for the first time, a bank has officially written down that cryptocurrency poses a threat to them. Most of them have been saying it kind of off the books kind of thing, or offhandedly, and it's been more of a personal opinion through the various employees and not really an official statement, but now it is. So one of the highlights they're saying is they would have to overhaul a significant amount of their infrastructure, products, and services to compete, and the fact that if they integrate crypto with their systems is they would have to undergo a lot of regulatory change, considering crypto makes it a very hard time for the banks to track payments, and banks need to be able to easily track payments to remain compliant legally. So overall, banks are being disrupted by crypto really heavily now, since they actually made a statement about it, and it will only get worse as banks prove to be too inflexible. And the final article here is researchers uncover Ethereum contract vulnerabilities, putting millions of dollars at risk. Researchers have found that around 6 million in smart contracts could be at risk. Why? Well, as we know, smart contracts are if then statements in a way, but as you add more code to the contract, you have more room for error. It's all hush hush about what type of contracts or what specific contracts are at risk, but it should be noted that anything that happened unattended in the contract was flagged, which means it's not necessarily a hacker risk. It could be a hacker risk or another situation where your funds could be frozen in limbo for an uncertain amount of time. So just be careful with what smart contracts you use, and the more complex they are, the higher chance of the contract having a point of failure. So just be aware that if you're using smart contracts for anything, it'll be interesting to see the full report, because I do anticipate that some of these games, especially that are using smart contracts, probably have a decent amount of vulnerabilities of either fund freezing or just a point of attack that hackers can use. Because the most common use of smart contract I'm seeing arise is people who are trying to hop on the kind of CryptoKitties train and make their own Ethereum game, like a game off the Ethereum network. And hopefully these pool smart contracts aren't also vulnerable, because I can already see a very hostile and very enraged community if their favorite tool, Permablock I think it's called, has any kind of vulnerabilities in funds, because you see hundreds of thousands to millions of funds go through pool smart contracts like that. And this will be for today. Kind of smaller than usual, but it had a very specific theme, I feel. As always, rate podcast on whatever you're listening to, and tune in Thursday for the next episode of the news.